going to do a quick music theory lesson for those of you who may be beginners and who may not be certain of some of the chords that I call out in some of these songs. Well, first of all, you have to know what the notes are. If you don't know your keyboard notes, then it makes things a little bit harder. So, first of all, the keyboard is separated by clusters of these black keys. And that's what lets you know which note is what. You've got clusters of 2 and clusters of 3. And so the notes just repeat over and over again. So I always start out with the clusters of 2. The note to the very left is C. And that's like a good central note to learn. Note to the very left of the clusters of 2 is C. And then the way the notes on a keyboard go, and all of music actually, goes from A to G and then starts over again. So this is C, we've got D, E, F, G, then A, B, C, and it just keeps going. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So once you practice your notes and get those down, then you can move on from there. There's a thing called a half step and a whole step in music, in the keyboard. You have from here to here is a whole step. From here to here is a half step. The difference is a half step is from one note to the very next possible note, whether it's a white key or a black key. From most of the time it's going to be a black key. So from here to here, half step. From here to here, half step. But once you skip a key, then it's a whole step. For example, there's 2 spots that are kind of tricky for most people. From here to here is a half step because there's no note in between. And from here to here is a half step. But everywhere else on the keyboard, you'll get a relation between the black key and a white key being a half step. But these are the 2 spots where this is a half step from a white key to another white key. This is E to F and B to C. Alright? So basically the chords that I call out, whether they're major or minor, you can use half step. You can use your half steps to figure out what chord is what. If you don't know your scales, because if you know scales, then you can use scales. But scales is another story. To figure out a major chord, you just start on the note. For example, if I call out a C, and you want a C major chord, the formula for a major chord is always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, and then 1, 2, 3 half steps. So the formula to make a major chord is always going to be 4 half steps, then 3 half steps. So if I call out, for example, a G major, you start at G, 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3 half steps. You have a G major chord. Alright? And then minor, if I call out minor, it's the opposite. It's going to be 3 half steps and then 4 half steps. So if you want to C minor, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is minor, and then the major was this. So the difference between a minor and a major is that second note, that middle note there. You lower it for minor, raise it for major. And so most of the chords I call out are either major or minor. Nothing too complicated. So that's a good place to start. Practice your major chords and your minor chords. And also a lot of times I play inversions. And I'll explain that real quick. An inversion, what that is if you play, this is a C major chord, I call it the root chord because it starts on C. Start on C, and then you build it upward. Now, if you want to invert it, all you have to do is take one of these notes from the top or the bottom and move it to the opposite side. So, if we want to invert it upward, take the C from here and just play the C up here. And you've got that, which is the same chord, just inverted, moved up. That chord, take the C, move it up, move it up, and it's in its first inversion. That's a first inversion C major chord. And then you can do it again. Take the bottom note, move it up, which is an E, move it up there, and you play it like that. You've got your second inversion C major chord. So a lot of times I'll play chords that aren't the root chord, that don't start on the note. They're inversions, but they're the same chord. So that's something to practice. It's the same going down also. If you want to invert it down, this is a C major, start on the C. You can take the G here and play the G down here. Invert it down. You've got second inversion C major chord. Okay, and it just makes it easier later on when you're going from one chord to another. Certain inversions makes it easier to switch from one chord to another. But for right now, just practice your notes, your half steps, your whole steps, making chords, and figuring out inversions.